You guys, I just realized how much we have to cover this month. So we're just going to jump right into those directions and correspondences. Don't feel bad if you have to refer to your notes, and I will have some handouts attached to this because these are important. So we've covered casting our circle, which is our energetic bubble. Now we move on to the elements. Now, again, in everyday magic, perhaps maybe you'll call upon one element and its correspondence, but for ritual magic, we call all four quarters. Now, much like with when we are doing our doing and our undoing of our circle, right? When we're doing our circle, we do clockwise or diacal. When we are undoing or cleansing or moving the energy of undoing, we work widdershins or counterclockwise. Similar correspondences exist within the four quarters and their correspondences. So, depending on what you are doing with your ritual and your working would depend on where you begin calling the quarters. So before we get into that, let's get into the quarters. Now, we're beginning our education with a beginning. So we're going to go with the East. The East is new beginnings. And a great way to remember the elements of the East are that it's new beginnings. The sun rises in the East. It's the beginning of a new day, as well as it's the beginning of a new life. We celebrate childhood, maidenhood, play. We celebrate all of those things of what the energies are of being childlike in the East. It's the beginning of life, the beginning of day. So the East is beginnings. The East is also the element of air. Air, such as laughter, storms, the winds of change, tornadoes, hurricanes. Air can be so destructive, but it can also be so expressive and creative because with air is breath and speaking and laughter and song. And so anything that corresponds with the element of air or the moving of air, the moving of energy through the wind, would be celebrated to the East. And the elements, the elementals for the East. These are the ancient energies in the archetypes that use air. So anything that's winged, you're going to find an element of air when it comes to what their energy and their magic is. Anything that uses its voice, bards in human form, would be aligned with the element of the East. Sirens using their voice, the Morrigan. So our winged friends, the ravens, the crows, they all align with the element of the East. The only one not to be confused with that, dragons and phoenixes. We'll talk about them in our next module for South. But our bird feathers, our bird friends, Pegasus, they all would be considered to be elements of the East. So when we call the elements of the East, we would be calling upon those who use their voice or use their breath. Now, moving on to the South, because again, we're doing, not undoing. So we're going to move clockwise or diacal to the South. The South is the element of fire. When we look at those kinds of things that we would call upon the elements of the South for, we would look at the element of what does fire do? Fire transmutes. It consumes, it refines. Think of the fires of the forge or the flames of the dragon. Think of the fire in your belly when you're passionate about something. The element of fire encompasses everything from consuming or releasing through burning to transmutation and alchemy, because many times those things we need to alchemize, such as lead into gold, would be done using the fire. So everything from forges to smelters, we know this transmutation process, building a sword from raw metal. The element of the South is also about work. So as we move to the South, it's that time where we go from teenagers and playful into really deciding what we do for work. What is our life's purpose? It's that time that we work on building ourselves. We grow and we thrive. We educate ourselves. We're building ourselves into who we are. It's work. So the element of South would be what we would call upon for, say, a new job, for our work. the deities or the elementals for the south would be also fire related. So, Hades is a good one. The dragons, the phoenix. It's interesting, the resurrection also of the fire. As we're resurrecting, I don't recommend resurrecting the dead or trying that one out, even though like practical magic, okay, that was pretty cool. Stab him in the eyes next time. But the element of the south is where we would look for transmutation. Our fire tribes know this one very well. You can dance within the flames, as long as you really are okay with risking getting burned. So as we accompany the flames, or we have them accompany us in transmutation, we would be aligning with the phoenix or the dragon with their protective energies. Now, as the wheel turns again, diasul, toward the west, now we're calling upon the west. The sun sets in the west. So as we're talking about the last portion of our lives, so again, birth, east, south, that midpoint, and then heading toward the west is where we would look at as we are watching the sun set on our lives. I won't say the conclusion, but the sunset. The journey, riding off into the sunset with the horses, right? West is for water. Water does what? Cleanses, washes, renews, purifies, and nurtures. It's flowy, it's creative. Rivers, streams, oceans, our deities would look a little like Yemaya, Poseidon, and our elementals, the mermaids, or the sylphs and sulkies. So those who dance among the water, those who use water and its absolute incredible power and force, as well as dancing in the rain energy. West is the place that we turn to once we have wisdom. Another W, easy to remember that one too. So if we're seeking wisdom from ourselves through our path and our purpose and our plan and what we have gone through so far, we will be calling upon the West. When we're looking at washing ourselves clean of something or washing something away, we're looking at nourishing through rains when we really feel swept away like tidal waves. Again, we would be calling upon the elements of the West. So we would begin our circle, our casting of our circle and our calling of the quadrants in the West in that case. Now, as the wheel turns again, heading toward north, now we're talking about ancestor energy. We're talking about the ending of a life, the transition, the passage from this life to the next. We're talking about not just knowledge, information, knowledge, and wisdom, which we haven't discussed just yet. We're talking about perspective, the perspective of this world and the other. This would be the place where the veil is the thinnest, and this would be where Samhain begins, is in the north. This is where we would meet our ancestors. And a good way to remember this, we typically remember the phrase ashes to ashes, dust to dust, returning to the earth. And that's exactly what element is in the north, is the earth. So we call upon the earth or the north when we're honoring our ancestors. We call upon the north when we are seeking wisdom from the ancestors. And we begin casting our circle and calling the quadrants in the north, if this is the energy that we're pulling from, that we are honoring and requesting to be on our side and by our side for our working. Now, that's pretty much where the Eastern craft stops, but as you know, earthways are earthways. So I also honor the above, the star people, the star nations, those that the Anasazi originated from, those in the other realms and the other vibrational places and spaces. You might call them the portals. I honor the star people. Then, placing a hand on the ground, I honor Mama Earth, Madre Tierra, Pachamama. This is different from the element of Earth, only in the fact that we're honoring our Earth only. And then Spirit, right here inside. Now, Eastern European craft would talk about Spirit in the North, and I agree. However, there's also the Great Spirit, the one that connects all of us. And so I definitely take a moment to honor the Great Spirit as well.